Hi and welcome to today's vlog. Now in the UK and other countries around the world, today is remembered as Father's Day, when we think about our fathers. Obviously some have very fond memories and good relationships with their dads, others not so. Some may not even know who their fathers are, which is very sad. I've been thinking about my own dad. My dad was born in the year 1919, and if he'd still been alive, he would have just been coming up in a few days to his 101st birthday. Sadly, he died quite a number of years ago. Indeed, when I first went out into full-time Methodist ministry in the year 1990, just a short time after I began in the September, I think probably the following month, we'd had some friends visiting us in Stoke-on-Trent, where we lived, and we'd gone out for a walk because we live quite close to a canal. It's a lovely place to walk. So we'd gone down for a walk, and when we got back, there was a message on the answer phone, I think from one of my sisters. And when I rang up, she told me that our dad had been taken ill and was in hospital. It transpired that he had a brain hemorrhage. Mum and Dad were living in Leeds at the time, and over the next few months I spent a long time travelling between Stoke and Leeds. We must have done several hundred, if not thousand, miles travelling. Dad spent a lot of time in hospital, some time at home, but he never fully recovered, and it was the following year in 1991 that Dad died at the age of just 72, and that's sobering in itself, because I'm now 65, so only 7 years before I reached the age when my dad died. So it's natural to think about your dad on Father's Day. I think about his character. He was a lovely man. He was quiet. Probably Mum did most of the talking, but he was someone to whom I looked up to greatly. When he said something, it was worth listening to, and he was greatly admired. And one of the things I often wish when I think of Dad was, well, I wish that I could go back or spend I would love to spend a little time with Dad, just talking and asking him the questions that I never got round to asking him when he was alive, the questions about his childhood, his upbringing, his background, his family life. So many questions that I would love to ask Dad now, but obviously never going to have that opportunity. So I would say to you, to those of you listening, if your dads are still alive, get those questions asked now while you still have the opportunity. Just value and treasure every moment that you can spend with them. As I think of my dad's funeral, it was a very, very emotional time. I couldn't even sing the hymns because I was so filled with emotion. So how people get up and speak about their loved ones at funeral services, I certainly couldn't have done that. So I was quite overwhelmed with the emotion, the sense of loss. Although we knew where Dad was, because his faith was in Jesus, we knew that he was with God. He was in a place of peace and of security and of fullness of joy and love. But we were missing him greatly. And I remember one of the hymns that we sang at Dad's funeral service was the wonderful old hymn, "Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. All I have needed, thy hand has provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me." And I remember very distinctly, as we got to that point where it says, "All I have needed, thy hand has provided." In my mind, I was talking to God and saying, "God, I can't sing that because I need my dad right now, and he's not here. You haven't provided that. You've allowed him to die." And I really had this tussle with God, and I felt as if God was saying, "Well, your earthly father's no longer around, but I am your heavenly Father, the one who loves you with a great love, the one who will never leave you, the one who is with you always. And though, of course, I still miss my dad, and sometimes he comes back to mind, and I wish I could have a chat with him. I think still, although he died all those years ago, I still miss him. I am encouraged and comforted by the fact that I have a Heavenly Father. There are a lot of people, I guess, who never had a good relationship with their dad. Maybe some who lost their father when they were very young and don't really have a memory. Some who have been abused by their father. And sadly, because of the fact that many families have broken up, a lot of children are living without their without their fathers. And that's really, really sad, because it gives a child, I believe, security when both parents are there offering love and care. Now, I'm not at all saying that single parents can't do a fantastic job. I know some single parents who are doing a fantastic job. But I'm sorry to say that a lot of men, really neglect their responsibility to their children. And that's sad. And yet that's the reality, isn't it, for many children who don't have their dad around for whatever reason. There is a verse in Psalm 68, it's verse 5, which says, God will be a father to the fatherless. Isn't that a wonderful image, that God will be a father to the fatherless? So though we may have had a great relationship with our earthly dad, we may have had a terrible relationship with our earthly dad, still God is the perfect father, the one who will never let us down, will always love us despite all our actions and our misbehaviours. Remember the famous prayer that Jesus gave to the disciples? They came to him one day, they'd seen him praying, and they said, Lord, would you teach us to pray? And he gave them the prayer that we call the Lord's Prayer. And I'm sure that you know it begins, our Father in heaven. We have a loving Father, the one who watches over us, the one who draws us to himself. And the amazing thing is that Jesus not only called God his Father, but he actually used a far more intimate term, the term Abba, which means something like daddy. When Jesus was praying to God the Father, he sometimes used the word Abba. And as we read the New Testament, it tells us that we too can use that term. We can be on intimate terms with our loving Heavenly Father, our Abba, our Daddy. So I want to encourage you today, whatever relationship you had or have with your dad, to remember that we have a Heavenly Father who loves us with an eternal love. And I'd also encourage you to do what you can, if your dad is still alive, to just contact him. Keep in contact. Tell him how much you love him. Keep those lines of communication open. Take the opportunity while you have it to spend time with your dad, to get to know him better, to build, strengthen that relationship. Ask the questions that you need to ask now before it's too late. And for those of you who are dads, none of us dads are perfect. We've all made mistakes. But do what you can to love your children, to be there for them, to offer them the strength and the support and the care and the love that they need. Give them of your time. Don't neglect them. God bless you. Have a great day.